The battlefield hung like a fractured jewel in orbit around the scorched world below. Sparks of energy lanced through the black void, crisscrossing the debris of shattered ships as if the universe itself were practicing some cruel, explosive choreography. Elias adjusted the straps of his armor with a groan, muttering to himself about the ergonomics, or lack thereof, of human combat gear, which was apparently designed by engineers who had never actually walked in zero gravity. He glanced out of the viewport and swallowed. The planet's surface was a kaleidoscope of firestorms and collapsing cities, while in orbit, the fleets of three species, human, alien, and mercenary, were tangled in a violent ballet. His stomach clenched, but he managed a self-deprecating joke under his breath. If anyone asks, tell them I fought bravely, in the part where I hid behind this console. The hum of the ship's reactors mixed with distant explosions, creating an oddly rhythmic backdrop to the chaos, almost like a macabre techno beat. Lyra lay strapped to a makeshift medical platform in the center of the shuttle bay. Even in her fragile, injured state, she radiated authority. Her skin, pale and luminescent against the stark metal of the med bay, seemed almost unreal. Her long ears, delicate and tapered, twitched with every minor vibration, catching subtle shifts in the room. Her eyes, large and violet with flecks of silver, tracked Elias with a mixture of disdain and reluctant amusement. He had the vague impression she could read his thoughts, and probably his mind's inner monologue, which was currently a mix of panic and sarcasm. "Do you always arrive at crises looking like a scared raccoon?" she murmured, her voice melodious but tinged with irritation. Her lips curved into a faint smirk. Elias swallowed, fumbling with the medkit. "I prefer sophisticated panic, thank you very much. And this is what passes for bravery in humans. We like to keep it dramatic." The medic, a nervous young technician whose name tag read Iker, shook his head as he checked the readings. "Her vitals are dropping faster than a cargo shuttle through a black hole," he said. "Human blood won't integrate with her physiology, she could die, or worse." His voice trailed off, because none of them could quite articulate the biological impossibility of what Elias was about to suggest. Elias took a deep breath and, in a moment of reckless optimism, or absolute foolishness, offered his arm. "Fine," he said, flexing his bicep with unnecessary flair. "Let's see if human courage, and blood type B positive, can do what your advanced alien medicine can't." He cast a sidelong glance at Lyra. "Besides, you owe me one for every sarcastic comment I've endured so far." Lyra's smirk widened. "Do I get to pick how I repay you? Preferably something involving fewer near-death experiences." The transfusion was set up amidst the chaos of alarms, flashing lights, and the occasional ricochet of plasma from nearby skirmishes outside the shuttle hull. A holographic interface flickered over Elias's arm, displaying vital signs, blood compatibility ratios, and a running sarcastic commentary from the ship's AI that had apparently developed a fondness for dark humor. "Oh yes," the AI quipped in a dry, metallic tone, "because humans and alien royalty always make such a charming combination. I'm sure this will end delightfully." Elias gritted his teeth, trying to ignore the AI. The needle pierced his vein, and he winced theatrically. Lyra's body tensed, and he felt it, an immediate, strange shiver running along his spine, as if her nervous system and his had decided to start gossiping with each other without asking permission. His heart seemed to flutter in tandem with hers, and he found himself thinking, don't panic, oh gods, why is she twitching like that?" The impossible happened. Her vitals, previously plummeting like a rogue asteroid, stabilized. The medtechs cheered, though the cheer sounded oddly muffled through the roar of the ongoing battle. Lyra opened her eyes, and for the first time since he'd met her in this frantic orbit, Elias saw something soft behind her regal facade: gratitude? Bewilderment? Or perhaps just amusement at the absurdity of surviving a transfusion that should have killed her. "I'm awake," she said, her voice almost teasing. "And apparently, still alive. Congratulations. I would have expected death to be more dramatic." Elias allowed himself a small, victorious smile. Well, I always aim to underwhelm expectations. Next time, we'll try something equally terrifying but less messy. She raised an eyebrow, the movement graceful and deliberate, and the long tips of her ears flicked like small antennae. You're oddly charming when you're panicking. Perhaps the universe enjoys cruel jokes. They shared a brief, silent moment as the ship lurched violently, dodging debris from an exploding capital vessel. Elias caught himself on the nearest railing, and Lyra's hand brushed his. The touch was brief but electric, a spark of the strange bond forming between them. He felt her heartbeat echo in his chest, her breathing sync with his, and a flicker of instinctive awareness that made his mind reel. She sensed his fear, yes, but also his resolve, and perhaps even his humor. Outside, the battlefield continued its violent, chaotic symphony. Missiles carved luminous trails across the void, while distant explosions painted fleeting murals on the hull's reinforced windows. Within the shuttle, laughter punctuated fear. Elias cracked another joke. So, do you get frequent flyer miles for near-death experiences? Lyra's laugh was soft, musical, and completely human in its cadence, though tinted with something alienly foreign. Perhaps, she said, wiggling her long ears with an almost mischievous flourish. But I suspect the fine print says, not redeemable in any known galaxy. The medics hurried to stabilize the last few erratic readings, while Elias, pretending to look heroic, leaned against the console. Well, Princess, if we survive this, you owe me at least a cup of coffee, or whatever your species drinks to celebrate improbably narrow escapes. She rolled her eyes but smiled, an expression that somehow made the metallic, cramped medbay feel almost cozy. Coffee, she said thoughtfully. Do you take it black, or with sarcasm? The shuttle jolted again, this time violently, sending a loose tool spinning past Elias's face. He ducked, muttering, with a side of death, naturally. Lyra, for her part, only laughed, and it was enough to make him feel, against the roaring backdrop of a galaxy tearing itself apart, that somehow, amidst the chaos, there was a moment of calm. A small, human-alien heartbeat in tandem. As the ship engaged its emergency hyperdrive, weaving through debris and firestorms, their bond tightened imperceptibly, a thread of shared survival linking their fates. The Royal Guardian's ships flared into pursuit, but Elias and Lyra, haphazardly yet miraculously, evaded them. She teased him about his navigation skills. You call this piloting, or interpretive dance? And he shot back with a grin, it's very avant-garde. By the time the shuttle cleared the immediate danger zone, the galaxy outside had returned to its indifferent vastness. Inside, Elias caught a glance of Lyra, her long ears twitching as she studied him with a mixture of curiosity, amusement, and what he could only describe as a quiet intensity. For the first time, he realized that this transfusion had done something more than save her life. It had entwined them, mind, body, and instinct, in a way that defied reason. And as the stars stretched into streaks of light around them in hyperspace, he felt the subtle, undeniable truth: they were no longer merely allies by circumstance. They were, in some strange and unspoken way, linked forever. Elias exhaled slowly, leaning back and muttering under his breath, well, this is going to be interesting. Lyra, catching the remark, tilted her head and smiled. Oh, you have no idea. And with that, the shuttle sailed into the depths of the galaxy, leaving a battlefield behind, while two very different beings began a journey that would challenge everything they thought they knew about loyalty, survival, and the unlikeliest of connections. The shuttle drifted through hyperspace like a fragile leaf caught in a cosmic storm, the stars stretching into brilliant, elongated streaks that painted the cabin with strange, alien hues. Elias, still slightly stiff from the previous day's chaos, stared at the ceiling panels, muttering complaints about human neck muscles being poorly engineered for long-range space travel. He flexed his shoulders experimentally, only to wince and whisper, "Yep, still fragile. Still useless." Lyra reclined in the medbay corner, her long ears twitching occasionally as though catching whispers from the ship itself. She had grown more composed since her near-fatal transfusion, though there was a subtle, almost mischievous light in her violet eyes that made Elias feel simultaneously reassured and slightly nervous. Her alabaster skin seemed to shimmer faintly under the ship's artificial lights, and she flexed her fingers as if testing the new vitality coursing through her veins. "Do humans always look so uncoordinated when they're awake?" she asked, her tone lightly teasing. She tilted her head, letting the long tips of her ears brush against the edge of the medbay wall, an unconscious gesture that Elias found strangely distracting. "I try to keep it dramatic," he replied, attempting a heroic shrug that ended in a small stumble. "Part of the charm, really. You should see me in zero-gravity yoga class." She arched an eyebrow, one corner of her mouth quirking upwards. "I can't wait." The tension of the battlefield seemed impossibly distant now, yet the bond between them hummed like a low, constant current beneath their words. Elias could feel it, subtle flickers of Lyra's emotions brushing against his own. When she laughed, he found himself smiling before realizing why. When she tensed, his muscles unconsciously mirrored hers. It was disconcerting and fascinating in equal measure. "Do you feel that?" he asked cautiously, resting a hand on his arm as though to remind himself that he was, in fact, a separate organism. "Feel what?" she replied, though the hint of a smirk betrayed her awareness. This weird, connection thing." His words were hesitant, awkward. "Like I can sense you sometimes, and you can sense me. It's creepy but not entirely unpleasant." Lyra studied him, her long ears twitching rhythmically, and then let out a soft laugh, musical and lilting. "Yes," she admitted. "It's new. Surprising. But not entirely unpleasant. You are very human, Elias, in all the ways that matter, and, oddly enough, in ways that don't." Elias blinked. "I'll take that as a compliment." "Probably." Outside the viewport, hyperspace rippled and shimmered, occasionally interrupted by tiny bursts of cosmic debris, asteroids, discarded satellites, or perhaps fragments of an older, forgotten war. Elias peered out, marveling at the speed and the chaos of the galaxy, and made another self-deprecating observation: "I've always wanted to see the universe stretch its arms and yell at me. Kinda like now." Lyra laughed again, a soft, light sound that seemed almost contagious. "You have a peculiar way of describing things," she said. "But somehow, it fits you." Their laughter was interrupted by the soft ping of the ship's alert system. A holographic display flickered to life, projecting a small schematic of approaching starcraft, sleek, angular, unmistakably royal in design. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, and Elias followed her gaze, noting the shift in her demeanor. Gone was the playful amusement. In its place was the steely, royal resolve that had defined her even before the transfusion. "They found us," she said quietly. Her long ears twitched back in a subtle, almost defensive gesture. "My guardians, they are persistent." Elias leaned against the console, trying to mask his own rising tension with humor. "Persistent? Like a door-to-door salesman, or more like, angry swarm of space hornets?" Lyra's lips twitched in the faintest smile. "Angry swarm of space hornets, definitely. But door-to-door salesman would be more polite." Despite the humor, the reality of their situation weighed heavily. Lyra's royal guardians would not hesitate to eliminate him if they could not separate him from her. And yet, the strange bond created by the transfusion made any attempt at separation dangerous, perhaps even fatal. They had become more than allies. They were entwined in ways neither of them fully understood, and the galaxy around them was impatient to punish such anomalies. To escape, they navigated the shuttle toward an uncharted sector known as the Drift Cluster, a nebulous stretch of space teeming with energy anomalies, gravitational distortions, and rogue asteroid fields. Elias piloted with improvised flair, flipping switches, pressing holographic buttons at random intervals, and muttering sarcastic commentary about the quality of the shuttle's control system. "I am beginning to suspect," Lyra said dryly, "that your piloting strategy is entirely dependent on luck, bravado, and something you call winging it." Elias smirked, eyes scanning the twisting streaks of hyperspace. Wing it, survive it, laugh at it. Works every time. Their journey through the drift cluster became a bizarre dance of danger and humor. Energy storms warped the ship, shaking them violently, and gravitational eddies pulled and twisted their trajectory unpredictably. Lyra, her new strength evident in her graceful agility, helped stabilize the ship's thrusters with a precision that was almost mesmerizing. Elias, trying to maintain the illusion of calm competence, commented on every minor adjustment with sarcastic bravado, earning a faintly amused glare from the princess. At one point, a rogue asteroid suddenly drifted across their path. Elias cursed under his breath, yanking the control lever. Lyra, with an almost effortless flip, redirected the emergency thrusters, catching him mid-slip and steadying him against the console. Their hands brushed, brief, electric, and laden with that unexplainable connection. Elias felt his pulse synchronize briefly with hers, a momentary echo of shared instinct. "You're lucky," she said softly, her voice tinged with humor and a touch of something more. "Most humans would have been, unceremoniously flattened." "I know," he replied, trying to sound casual, though his heart hammered in his chest. "It's a gift. A terrifying, deadly gift." Even as danger pressed from all sides, their humor became a lifeline, a reminder that they were more than mere survivors, they were partners, experimenting with the strange new symbiosis imposed by the transfusion. When Lyra pressed the wrong button on the control panel, causing the navigation hologram to emit a bizarre sequence of musical tones, Elias quipped, "Congratulations, you just invented the galaxy's most annoying lullaby." Lyra's laugh echoed, reverberating through the cabin, a soothing counterpoint to the chaos outside. As the drift cluster began to thin, revealing glimpses of more stable space, Elias and Lyra allowed themselves a brief moment of calm. They studied one another in silence, the shared awareness between them deepening. She could sense his hesitation, his lingering fear, his attempts at humor as armor. He, in turn, could feel her cautious optimism, her pride, and a flicker of curiosity. Curiosity about him, about the bond, and about the absurd twists of fate that had thrown them together. "You know," Elias said, leaning against the console with exaggerated nonchalance, "I think we make a surprisingly good team. And by surprisingly, I mean against all odds, including the laws of physics, biology, and common sense." Lyra's lips curved into a faint, genuine smile. "Yes. Surprisingly. But also, disturbingly effective." She flexed her long ears experimentally, as if testing how much of her new vitality she could trust. Perhaps the universe enjoys chaos almost as much as it enjoys irony. The shuttle glided toward the edge of the cluster, the distant glow of uncharted systems promising both refuge and further unknown dangers. Elias exhaled, finally allowing himself to relax, just slightly. He glanced at Lyra, whose gaze lingered on him for a heartbeat longer than necessary, and felt that strange tingle, the thread of connection that had become a tether between them. "And when we finally stop running," he said, trying to sound light-hearted, "we should celebrate. Maybe with coffee, or alien pastries that explode in your mouth. You know, civilized stuff." Lyra laughed softly again, and the sound filled the cabin like sunlight spilling into a dark room. "Yes," she said. "Civilized. But only if you promise not to trip over it." As hyperspace stretched and twisted around them, Elias and Lyra settled into a rhythm, navigating danger, testing the limits of their connection, and finding humor in even the direst circumstances. Outside, the galaxy remained indifferent, a swirling canvas of light and shadow. Inside, they discovered something far rarer: companionship, laughter, and the beginnings of trust that neither battle nor science could sever. For all its chaos, for all its danger, the journey had begun, and neither of them would ever be the same. The shuttle emerged from hyperspace into a cluster of twin suns that bathed the system in a warm, honeyed light. Below sprawled a planet that might have been familiar to humans if one ignored the floating flora and violet oceans that reflected the suns like molten mirrors. The atmosphere shimmered with bioluminescent particles, giving the impression that the very air was alive, pulsing softly in a rhythm almost musical in tone. Elias pressed his forehead against the viewport, awed despite himself. I always suspected the universe was showing off. I didn't expect it to use neon lights. Lyra reclined in the navigator's seat, her long ears twitching like the delicate antennas of some exotic terrestrial insect. It's a suitable hideaway, she said quietly. Few would bother searching here. The locals are unpredictable, and you cannot chart every anomaly in the atmosphere. She flexed her fingers, the tips brushing the console with a subtle grace that was alien yet elegant. But it is calm enough. For now. Elias attempted a casual glance at her but misjudged the angle and ended up with his nose pressed comically against the dashboard. I think calm is relative. And I may need a diploma in alien botany just to survive outside this cockpit. Lyra let out a soft, almost musical chuckle, shaking her head. I suspect the term survival will be redefined for you repeatedly, human. Her tone carried amusement, but beneath it lingered a flicker of concern. Though I am curious how you will handle the local flora. They are enthusiastic. As they landed on a plateau cushioned with bioluminescent moss, Elias discovered that enthusiastic was an understatement. The moment his boots touched the surface, the moss quivered underfoot and emitted a low hum, vibrating the shuttle and his very bones. One patch reached up as though trying to grab him, and he leapt backward, flailing dramatically. This is perfectly fine, he muttered, pretending to be calm while glancing at Lyra, who was suppressing a grin. Nothing dangerous at all. Just, mildly homicidal moss. Lyra stepped lightly across the glowing terrain, her movements precise, almost floating, as if she were in constant negotiation with gravity itself. Her long ears twitched in subtle expressions, reflecting both curiosity and amusement. You exaggerate, she said. The moss is merely interested in your presence. You are energetic. She tilted her head, allowing her ears to catch the wind in a delicate, almost musical flutter. Most humans are rather dull. Elias wiped sweat from his brow and muttered, I'll take energetic over dead any day. He peered around, noting that the twin suns painted the alien landscape in elongated shadows, making every floating flower and plant seem like a creature from a dream, or a nightmare, depending on how you interpreted the pulsating light. They moved cautiously toward the center of the plateau, where a natural amphitheater of jagged stones rose like teeth from the ground. Lyra's sensors, or perhaps her instincts, picked up subtle vibrations in the air. These stones, she said, crouching to examine them, are not merely geological formations. They resonate with energy from the core. They amplify perception. I suspect we will be more aware here than elsewhere. Elias raised an eyebrow. Amplify perception? Fantastic. So if I misstep, everyone, Moss included, will know. He glanced at her, attempting to infuse humor into the tension. I'd like to officially apologize in advance. Lyra's lips curved in a faint, almost mischievous smile. You will learn quickly. Or the moss may learn first. As they ventured deeper into the amphitheater, Elias began noticing the subtle ways in which their biological link was shaping interactions. Lyra moved with instinctive precision, anticipating obstacles and guiding him with small nudges and gestures, though she never spoke the instructions aloud. Elias, in turn, felt an almost involuntary awareness of her intentions, responding in ways that surprised even him. When a floating plant suddenly swung a luminescent tendril in his path, he ducked instinctively, not merely reacting to the threat but almost predicting it before it occurred. Impressive, Lyra remarked, almost to herself. Your reflexes are enhanced. I call it beginner's luck, he quipped, dusting off moss that had clung stubbornly to his armor. Or, magic. Take your pick. She allowed herself a small, amused laugh, the sound carrying across the glowing terrain and mingling with the low hum of the flora. Magic would be preferable, she said softly. Yet we have science, and something more. She glanced at him, and for a fleeting moment, her violet eyes reflected not only the twin suns above but something deeper, curiosity, fascination, and the faintest trace of concern. By midday, or the closest equivalent on a planet with 2 suns, they found a small clearing where the light was filtered through floating flowers, creating a kaleidoscope of color across the mossy ground. Elias dropped onto the soft surface, exhaling in exaggerated relief. "I think I've just invented a new definition of exhaustion. I'd call it alien heatstroke plus near-death experience, but that may be too technical." Lyra crouched beside him, scanning the area with her fingers hovering just above the moss. "The term is sufficient," she said. "But you underestimate the adaptation required. Your biology will continue to change subtly. You may not even notice until weeks from now." Elias rolled his eyes, letting a faint smile tug at the corners of his mouth. "Great. I get to evolve while you just glimmer mysteriously. Fantastic teamwork." She twitched one ear in acknowledgement, a gesture that made him oddly aware of how human her movements seemed, despite their alien elegance. "We are unusual," she admitted. "Unpredictable, but effective." The afternoon brought small lessons in cooperation. Lyra demonstrated how to interact with the local flora without provoking violent responses, gentle touches, rhythmic movements, and an awareness of the plant's own energy. Elias attempted to mimic her, with varying degrees of success. One tendril wrapped around his arm and lifted him slightly off the ground. He yelped in surprise, and Lyra's laughter rang out, musical and teasing. "You are not subtle," she said. "But you are amusing. That may be your saving grace." "I'll take it," he said, swinging down carefully. "Amusing is better than flattened." Evening approached, or at least the closest approximation in a system with 2 suns. The glow from the bioluminescent moss shifted subtly, bathing the clearing in soft violet light. Elias and Lyra sat side by side, legs stretched, sharing small jokes and observations about the strange, unpredictable planet around them. For the first time since the battlefield, the tension eased, not entirely gone, but softened by laughter and the quiet comfort of shared survival. "You know," Elias said, glancing at her, "if this whole war thing falls through, we could open a tourism guide. How to survive twin suns and murderous moss, a beginner's manual." Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. "I suspect few would survive the first chapter." She flicked her long ears playfully. "Yet you, human, may be the exception." Their conversation drifted, touching lightly on more personal subjects, childhood memories, favorite foods. Elias was fascinated by the concept of a bioluminescent fruit smoothie, and subtle, gentle teasing that underlined a growing trust. Despite the alien nature of her world, Lyra's sense of humor and warmth began to make Elias feel less alone. Night, or the equivalent in this solar rhythm, descended with an ethereal calm. The twin suns set on opposite horizons, casting elongated shadows across the moss and flowers. The air pulsed softly with energy, resonating through their bodies, subtly reinforcing the bond that had begun with the transfusion. Elias could feel her heartbeat echoing faintly in his chest, and Lyra could sense his nervous tension unwinding for the first time in days. "You are strange, human," she said quietly, almost a whisper. "Persistent, amusing, and not entirely intolerable." Elias smirked, leaning back on his hands. "I'll take that as the highest compliment possible from a princess with glowing ears." She laughed softly, and the sound mingled with the hum of the planet itself, a perfect harmony of life, survival, and something indefinably shared. For all its alien strangeness, for all the danger lurking beyond the plateau, the moment was theirs, a rare, fleeting calm in a galaxy that rarely offered such luxuries. As they settled beneath the glow of the twin suns and the bioluminescent canopy, Elias realized that this strange, alien planet was teaching them more than survival. It was teaching cooperation, trust, and the subtle joy of companionship, threaded with laughter and curiosity. And above all, it was teaching them that even in a galaxy full of chaos and danger, moments of calm, humor, and understanding were perhaps the rarest and most valuable resources of all. The glow from the twin suns had faded into a surreal twilight, and the bioluminescent moss beneath their feet pulsed gently, bathing the clearing in a violet luminescence that shimmered with every subtle movement. Elias stretched, feeling the residual stiffness of muscles he wasn't certain were supposed to move that way, and sighed dramatically. "I'm convinced," he said, voice echoing softly against the jagged stones, "that this planet is conspiring against me. Either that or it has a very specific sense of humor." Lyra's long ears twitched in amusement. "You exaggerate," she said, though the flicker of a smile betrayed her own enjoyment. "It is merely instructive. The environment teaches, but it does not conspire. Or perhaps only mildly so." Elias squinted at a floating tendril of bioluminescent plant matter. "Mildly so? It tried to strangle me 5 minutes ago. I call that moderate conspiracy." She chuckled softly. The sound was musical, carried lightly in the alien air, and it made Elias pause, feeling once again the subtle, uncanny connection between them. The transfusion had been more than life-saving, it had created a bond neither could fully comprehend yet, and moments like these, when laughter coexisted with danger, highlighted it. He felt her amusement, her mirth, as a gentle echo in his chest. Their temporary peace was disrupted by a faint shimmer on the horizon, almost imperceptible, but Lyra's long ears twitched sharply. "Sensors detect approaching vessels," she said, her tone calm but edged with caution. "Not hostile, yet, but they are, searching." Elias groaned and sank onto a stone, running a hand over his face. "Of course. Because calm and quiet were never options for us. Why settle for a relaxing alien sunset when you can have near-death chases instead?" Lyra crouched beside him, her eyes scanning the shifting horizon. "We do not know they are hostile," she reminded him. "But we must be prepared. My guardians," she paused, the long tips of her ears flicking in irritation, "they will not tolerate your continued proximity. They see you as a threat to my health, my authority, and possibly the entire royal decorum." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Royal decorum? I'm thrilled to hear my inadequacy extends across species. Makes me feel intergalactic." Lyra's lips twitched, suppressing a laugh. "You are entertaining, human, though I suspect your humor is a defense mechanism." Their moment of levity was interrupted as the approaching ships became visible, sleek, angular, and almost painfully elegant, reflecting the meticulous design of Lyra's royal fleet. They moved with purpose, cutting through the hazy atmosphere of the planet with a fluid grace that contrasted sharply with Elias's improvisational piloting instincts. "They are here for us," Lyra murmured, almost to herself. "And they are resolute." Elias propped himself up on one elbow, squinting at the distant vessels. "Resolute? Or just fashionably angry? They do seem to have impeccable taste in starcraft." She tilted her head, her ears flicking in faint amusement. "Perhaps both. But humor will not shield us." As they prepared to flee, the planet's unpredictable flora intervened. Glowing tendrils extended from the moss, wrapping gently around their ankles, tugging them unexpectedly. Elias yelped, stumbling backward, and Lyra caught him with an effortless motion, her touch electric with that inexplicable link. "You are unusually clumsy," she observed, her voice light but amused. "I prefer the term thrillingly uncoordinated," he shot back. "Add spice to our escape." Lyra allowed herself a faint smile. "Then we shall continue with thrillingly uncoordinated tactics." They ran, weaving between towering bioluminescent flora, the moss responding to their presence with vibrations and soft glows. Their bond, deepening with every synchronized movement, allowed them to anticipate each other's actions with eerie precision. When a falling boulder, a relic of some past tectonic disturbance, hurtled toward them, Elias instinctively dove aside, and Lyra's hand guided his trajectory, ensuring he landed safely on a mossy outcrop. "You are surprisingly adaptable," she said, her voice calm, yet carrying an undertone of admiration. "Though still, chaotic." Elias flopped onto the soft moss, panting. "Adaptable, yes. Chaotic, absolutely. I consider it my signature. From the sky, the royal vessels descended, their hulls gleaming as searchlights cut across the glowing landscape. The situation demanded quick thinking. Lyra tapped into the energy resonances of the terrain, her fingers tracing arcs of invisible lines in the air. Small distortions shimmered as if the planet itself were responding, creating shadows and pockets of concealment. Elias blinked, awed. "You're bending the planet to your will. That's seriously impressive. And slightly terrifying." "It is subtle," Lyra said. "But effective. The planet has memory. It responds to patterns of energy. We can move unseen if we respect it." As they navigated through the terrain, Elias marveled at the alien ingenuity. The moss, the flora, and even the floating rocks seemed to pulse with a rhythm that harmonized with Lyra's own energy field. He felt it too, every movement she made guided him, their bond now not only emotional but instinctual. At one point, he stumbled again, catching himself with a comic flourish that sent a glowing tendril spinning toward Lyra. She caught it midair, raising an eyebrow. "You truly are chaotic," she remarked, smirking despite the danger. "See?" Elias said, brushing himself off. "Adds character. Keeps things interesting." "You're welcome." The humor between them created a fragile cocoon of calm amidst the chaos, a way to process fear and exhaustion without succumbing to it. Each joke, each quip, reinforced their trust, their connection, an invisible tether that became increasingly difficult for either of them to ignore. Eventually, they reached a cavernous formation, the entrance masked by hanging vines that pulsed faintly in the violet glow. Lyra pressed her hands to the stone, feeling the subtle vibrations of the subterranean currents. "This will provide temporary refuge," she said. "They will search the plateau first. Then, perhaps they will hesitate to enter here." Elias slid inside, examining the walls, which shimmered faintly with mineral bioluminescence. "Cozy," he said with deliberate sarcasm. "You know, in a post-apocalyptic, alien jungle sort of way. Feels like home already." Lyra allowed herself a genuine laugh, echoing softly off the walls. "I am beginning to appreciate your humor, human. It is tolerable, and even useful." As the twilight deepened outside, the cavern offered a strange serenity. Elias and Lyra tended minor wounds, shared ration packs, and traded small stories of their past lives. Humor punctuated the conversation. Elias recounted tales of awkward military drills, while Lyra offered glimpses of courtly absurdities that made him chuckle. Each moment reinforced their bond, the transfusion's effects creating a subtle symbiosis that neither fully understood but both relied upon. Night settled fully, though filtered by the twin suns' residual glow and the planet's pulsing flora. Elias lay back, watching Lyra as she adjusted the light patterns around them to create soft illumination. "I have to say," he murmured, "between near-death escapes and glowing moss, I've had stranger nights. But somehow, this one is nice." Lyra glanced at him, her violet eyes reflecting the bioluminescence. "Nice," she repeated softly. "It is rare. We may not have many, but this is one. Enjoy it, human." Elias smiled, feeling the connection thrumming faintly through their shared bond. Danger was never far, but the humor, trust, and quiet understanding between them created a fleeting sanctuary, a moment of calm in a galaxy that rarely permitted it. He knew their respite would be brief, the royal guardians would not forget. But for now, there was laughter, warmth, and the strange, undeniable comfort of shared survival. And as they drifted into the cavern's shadows, Elias realized, this alien princess, with her long years, subtle grace, and quiet humor, had become far more than a charge or a companion. She was a tether to a life he had never imagined, a guide through chaos, and a partner in a galaxy that refused to wait. Their journey continued, and with it, the bond forged by blood, laughter, and mutual survival grew ever stronger, a fragile but resilient thread stretching across light years and danger, drawing them inexorably together. The shuttle's engines purred a subdued vibration as it glided silently through the asteroid-dense outskirts of the Trelvik system. Outside the viewport, fractured rock spun lazily in zero gravity, catching the reflected light of distant stars and glimmering like shards of frozen glass. Elias sat cross-legged on the deck, absently flipping a small tool he had found in the shuttle's repair kit, muttering half-coherent commentary about how every spacefaring vessel seemed to have a drawer dedicated to useless junk. "You know," he said, loud enough for Lyra to hear, "I think engineers have a secret competition, who can design the most unintentionally hilarious gadget. This spanner here, does it even have a function? Or is it just decorative?" Lyra's violet eyes followed the tool, her long ears twitching slightly as she studied him with a faintly amused expression. "Decorative seems unlikely," she said, her voice carrying that calm, deliberate cadence that always made him feel simultaneously scrutinized and oddly comforted. "But humans do have an inclination for chaos. Perhaps your engineers are aware of it and exploit it." Elias grinned. "Exploit it? That's one way to phrase it. I prefer, add layers of danger to life's mundane tasks. Keeps you on your toes." Lyra let out a soft laugh, musical and unhurried, the kind that seemed to resonate through the shuttle's thin metal frame. He felt the echo of her laughter in his chest, a faint vibration that had become familiar since the transfusion. Their bond was no longer subtle, it tugged at him in moments like this, making humor feel heavier with shared significance and quiet understanding. The shuttle's sensors beeped, breaking the serene rhythm. A derelict space station appeared on the display, drifting near the gravitic pull of a small gas giant. Its hull was scarred with old battle damage, and fragments of long-abandoned craft floated lazily around it, like the remnants of forgotten lives. Lyra leaned forward, fingertips tracing patterns across the holographic map. "This station," she said carefully, "was once a research outpost. Abandoned, yes, but it contains information about ancient biological experiments. Some may be related to the physiology of my kind, or the symbiosis we share." Elias whistled, loud and poorly contained. "Oh, fantastic. So we're not just running from people who want to kill us, we're also poking around a creepy abandoned station in the middle of nowhere. Just a normal day in the life of humans and alien royalty." Lyra's lips twitched in the faintest smile, and her long ears flicked with an almost imperceptible gesture of amusement. "You have a talent for understatement." As they docked, the station groaned in protest, metal panels creaking like old bones. The airlock hissed open, and the stale scent of vacuum and oxidation greeted them. Elias stepped cautiously, peering at the darkened corridors. "Well," he said, tugging at the edge of his armor, "this smells like a fun vacation spot. Anyone have a flashlight? Or shall I improvise with sarcasm?" Lyra moved ahead gracefully, her long ears twitching to catch subtle vibrations along the walls. "Caution," she murmured. "There may be remnants. Defenses, automated or otherwise. Sensors indicate residual energy fields." Elias sidestepped a fallen crate, muttering, "Remnants, defenses, residual energy. You make it sound like a haunted house, and I swear, I left my courage in the shuttle." Lyra's laugh followed him down the corridor, musical and teasing. "Your courage is resilient, in its own peculiar way." They explored the station with slow, careful precision. Holographic displays flickered, half destroyed by age and neglect, showing schematics of strange alien experiments, biological engineering, cellular fusion trials, and protocols that hinted at the creation of hybrid nervous systems. Lyra's eyes glimmered as she studied the archives, her long ears quivering with what seemed like both fascination and caution. "This," she said softly, running her fingers across a partially illuminated console, "explains much of the experimental protocols we encountered in your human research data, and the limitations of your medical technology. They attempted symbiosis, but failed to stabilize it. The transfusion, perhaps it succeeded because it bypassed the controlled environment entirely." Elias squinted at her, then at the flickering data. "So. Basically, I'm a walking, talking science experiment, and we didn't even need lab coats or safety goggles. Classic human ingenuity. Lyra allowed herself a small, amused smile, one corner of her mouth twitching. Perhaps, unusual, but effective. You have contributed something, essential. They moved deeper into the station, navigating twisting corridors and anti-gravity fields that intermittently malfunctioned, sending objects floating in arcs that made Elias yelp with a combination of alarm and comedic flair. He ducked under a drifting chair, muttering, "I swear, one day these objects are going to gang up on me. And I'll never hear the end of it." Lyra's long ears flicked in a subtle gesture that he had begun to recognize as a sign of amusement. "You survive, by improvisation, and perhaps by luck." "Mostly improvisation," he admitted. "Luck's nice, though. Keeps morale up." They reached the central laboratory, a vast circular chamber with transparent walls and scattered equipment. Holographic projections flickered weakly, revealing diagrams of alien physiology and neural networks that seemed to echo the bond they shared. Elias traced one with his finger, eyes widening. "Okay, so this is what we're talking about. That's actually insane. You're telling me someone tried to tangle nervous systems on purpose?" Lyra nodded, her expression serious yet tinged with curiosity. "Yes. Their goal was symbiosis, two organisms sharing instincts, emotions, and reflexes. Many failed because it requires absolute compatibility. But the transfusion, it appears to have created a viable link." Her eyes softened slightly, and for a fleeting moment, Elias felt the quiet depth of her trust. He leaned back against a console, shaking his head in awe. "So basically, I'm officially a cosmic experiment with questionable consent. And yet, somehow, we survived. Somehow, we're okay." Lyra's hand brushed briefly against his arm, a small, deliberate contact that made his pulse quicken. "We are surviving. And more than that, we are learning. Both of us." A low rumble echoed through the chamber as they examined another section. The floor beneath them vibrated faintly, and a projection flickered, revealing a partial blueprint of an energy conduit that resonated with organic tissue. Elias tilted his head. "You mean, that thing can amplify the weird bond thing between us? Like a cosmic Wi-Fi for blood magic?" Lyra's lips quirked into a faint smile. "Inaccurate analogy, but amusing. Yes. Energy resonance can strengthen the connection. It is fascinating. And potentially dangerous if misused." Elias glanced at her, eyebrows raised. "You always manage to make danger sound elegant. And somehow, I'm still grinning." She chuckled softly, stepping closer to examine the same display. "Perhaps your humor is contagious. Or perhaps it is your unique perspective that allows you to endure the incomprehensible." Hours passed as they delved into the station's archives, uncovering fragments of research, encrypted logs, and partial data files that hinted at long-forgotten experiments on alien physiology and hybrid nervous systems. Elias's commentary punctuated their work, a mixture of sarcastic observation and baffled awe. "Honestly, aliens experimenting on aliens with human volunteers, someone should write a cautionary tale. Or at least a comic book. Preferably both." Lyra's laughter filled the lab, blending with the hum of failing electronics and the faint pulse of residual energy. "You are relentless, human. And entertaining." As the night, or its nearest approximation, settled across the gas giant's distant horizon, Elias leaned back against a console, exhaustion mingled with exhilaration. "We've learned a lot today," he said softly, "and I think we're only halfway through understanding what's actually happening. But, for the first time, it feels like we're in control. Slightly. Sort of. Kind of." Lyra studied him, her long ears flicking thoughtfully. "Control is an illusion, human. But understanding, perhaps that is attainable. And with understanding, perhaps we can survive what comes next." Elias nodded, feeling the subtle pulse of their connection again, a thread of instinct and emotion weaving them together more tightly than he had anticipated. Humor, trust, and shared survival had become the foundation for something remarkable, a bond that defied logic, science, and expectation. They left the station with fragments of knowledge, laughter echoing softly in the empty corridors, their spirits buoyed despite the dangers awaiting them outside. And as the shuttle lifted from the station, Elias glanced at Lyra, violet eyes glowing faintly under the shuttle's ambient lights. "Well," he said, "if surviving derelict stations, murderous moss, and royal pursuers doesn't make us heroes, I don't know what does. Maybe comedians. Dangerous comedians." Lyra's smile was quiet but genuine. Comedians, perhaps. But also survivors. Together. And in that fragile truth, the bond that had begun with blood now deepened with shared discovery, humor, and a quiet understanding that the galaxy would not define them. They would define themselves. Together. The shuttle skimmed the edge of a dense asteroid belt, the hull creaking with each minor collision as if complaining about being dragged through a cosmic obstacle course. Elias clutched the console with a dramatic groan. "I swear, these asteroids are conspiring against me personally. Or maybe the universe just enjoys my melodrama." Lyra reclined beside him, her long ears twitching slightly as she observed the spinning debris. "You exaggerate," she said, though the corner of her mouth lifted in amusement. "The universe does not conspire, not consciously. But chaos is inevitable." Elias flopped back, attempting a heroic sigh that turned into a cough as the shuttle shuddered violently. "I prefer my chaos with a side of survival. Preferably not crushed between two floating rocks." Lyra allowed herself a soft laugh, a sound that seemed to harmonize with the gentle hum of the shuttle's engines and the distant light of far-off stars. That laughter, faintly resonant through the bond they shared, calmed him in ways he didn't fully understand. Their connection, strange and unnerving at first, had become a steady rhythm, almost like a second heartbeat he could feel whenever she was near. The sensors beeped, drawing their attention. Approaching them was a squadron of sleek, black royal vessels, their angular design slicing through the asteroid field with unnerving precision. Lyra's violet eyes narrowed. "They are efficient," she murmured. "And relentless." "My guardians," she hesitated, ears flicking slightly in agitation. "They will not stop until they retrieve you, or eliminate you." Elias leaned forward, eyes narrowing in mock suspicion. "Eliminate me? I'm clearly the most dangerous thing in this quadrant." "Clearly. Tell me you've got a plan beyond, just hoping we're fast enough." Lyra's lips quirked in a faint smile. "Hope is insufficient. But we have resources, and your improvisational skills are surprisingly effective in practice." The shuttle ducked and weaved through the asteroids, Elias improvising maneuvers that were equal parts daring and ridiculous. "Left? Right? I'm not sure anymore. It's all a blur of rock and existential panic." "You are chaotic," Lyra said calmly, though her tone carried admiration. "Yet effective. Trust your instincts, they are synchronized with mine." Elias froze mid-dodge, astonished. "Sync, what?" "Your nervous system," she said, voice almost conspiratorial. "It is connected to mine. Our bond amplifies reflexes. We anticipate each other, sometimes without conscious thought." "Watch." A massive asteroid loomed ahead. Elias' hands moved with sudden precision, adjusting thrusters and levers almost as if guided by another presence. Lyra's hands hovered nearby, her energy subtly influencing the shuttle systems. The asteroid veered past, harmless, and Elias slumped back, eyes wide. "Okay, that was terrifyingly awesome. Did we just, what? Coordinate instinctively?" Lyra nodded. "Yes. We are adapting. Faster than anticipated. Our connection strengthens with shared experience. It is symbiotic." Elias laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. Symbiotic. We're a cosmic buddy cop show now. Except one of us glows, and the other is terrified of rocks. She allowed herself a small, amused smile, though her eyes scanned the approaching vessels. The humor is useful. It steadies you. As the chase continued, they entered a swirling field of ionized gas, casting neon streaks across the viewport. Elias gasped. Wow. It's like we're swimming through neon spaghetti. And I forgot my fork. Lyra's ears flicked with amusement. Be careful. The gas contains reactive particles. One mistake and... I know, Elias muttered, hands flying over the controls. One mistake and we are, a cautionary tale for cosmic survival classes. Got it. The vessels pursued relentlessly, but the bond between Elias and Lyra began to reveal subtle advantages. Their reflexes became increasingly synchronized. When a sudden gravitational eddy threatened to spin the shuttle into a nearby asteroid, Elias instinctively twisted the controls while Lyra extended her awareness, guiding the shuttle's trajectory with a faint pulse of energy they both could feel. We are becoming more capable, she said quietly, almost to herself. Perhaps too capable. Elias, still recovering from a near miss, muttered, too capable. I feel like we're barely holding on to sanity, let alone capability. But thanks for the vote of confidence. Their humor persisted even in the chaos. When a rogue asteroid narrowly missed the shuttle, Elias quipped, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is why insurance exists in space. Or should, anyway. Lyra's lips twitched in a faint smile. Your commentary is relentless. It is oddly comforting. They reached a narrow passage between two massive asteroids, the only exit to open space beyond. Elias navigated with instinct, Lyra subtly amplifying his precision. Their combined efforts allowed the shuttle to slip through just as the royal vessel skidded past the asteroid entrances, momentarily disoriented by the field. Okay, Elias panted, I admit it. That was amazing. And terrifying. And I might need a nap. Or 3. Lyra's smile was quiet but genuine. We survived, together. That is, important. As they cleared the asteroid field, the bond's effects became more apparent. Elias could sense her awareness, her anticipations, almost like a silent conversation beneath conscious thought. Lyra could feel his reactions, subtle adjustments in timing and reflexes, echoing in her own awareness. The transfusion's effects, once mysterious, were now undeniable. Eerie, Elias muttered. I keep feeling like I can read your mind. Or at least, your muscle memory. It's creepy and awesome. Lyra's violet eyes glimmered faintly. It is, evolution. Unplanned, unpredictable, but functional. We are, more than we were. Together. Their relief was brief. Sensors detected another anomaly, a field of energy distortions, remnants of a collapsed star, unstable and volatile. Elias groaned. Of course. Because calm, predictable space is boring. Enter the exploding star fragment obstacle course. Lyra's lips curved slightly, amusement barely suppressing concern. It is hazardous. But manageable. With care. They navigated the energy field cautiously. The shuttle shuddered under every pulse, lights flickering, consoles vibrating. Elias muttered running commentary, blending humor with instinctive observations. Look at that one. That spark just tried to eat the navigation panel. I call it Zappy McZapface. Lyra's laughter, soft but melodic, filled the cockpit. Your naming conventions are strange. Yet comforting. Through careful coordination, the shuttle emerged unscathed. Elias slumped back in his seat, grinning faintly. Okay, so far, so alive. I call that a win. Lyra's ears flicked with subtle acknowledgement. Survival is not merely about avoiding destruction. It is about adaptation, learning, and laughter. You provide the latter. Elias raised an eyebrow. I'll take that. Laughter, my gift to the galaxy. Night, or its cosmic equivalent, settled across the distant stars, the twin suns of earlier systems replaced by the cold glimmer of distant nebulae. Elias leaned back, still catching his breath, while Lyra's gaze remained steady, thoughtful, almost reverent. You know, he said softly, I never expected to find camaraderie in all this chaos. Or humor. Or whatever this bond is. But I wouldn't trade it. Her lips curved faintly. Nor would I, human. Our connection is essential. And perhaps, more than survival alone. The shuttle drifted toward the edge of open space, a temporary reprieve from pursuit, danger, and chaos. The bond between them thrummed faintly, a pulse of shared instinct, emotion, and unspoken understanding. Humor remained their shield, instinct their weapon, and trust their anchor. Next time, Elias muttered with a weary grin, can we survive without, near-death experiences every 5 minutes? Maybe just a nice, quiet asteroid field for a change. Lyra's laughter was soft, melodic, carrying over the faint hum of the engines. Quiet, is possible, human. Perhaps, someday. But for now, we endure. Together. And in that enduring, strange, and exhilarating bond, they found the strength to face whatever the galaxy would throw at them next, hearts and instincts intertwined, laughter bridging the vast silence of space, and the faint pulse of survival echoing between them. The shuttle drifted in silent orbit above Lyra's homeworld, the twin suns of the system just peeking over the horizon, painting the atmosphere with gold and violet streaks. Below, the cities of her people sparkled like constellations, a living network of light and motion. Elias pressed his forehead to the viewport, trying to grasp the enormity of it. Well, he muttered, if anyone's going to stage a dramatic royal intervention, this is definitely the place. Lyra, seated beside him with her long ears twitching in the soft dawn breeze of the cabin, didn't reply immediately. Her violet eyes were fixed on the planet, calculating, weighing, and anticipating. Elias could feel the pulse of her thoughts, a subtle rhythm that harmonized eerily with his own instincts. The bond, forged in blood, fear, and laughter, had grown beyond anything either of them could have imagined. It was a living, breathing tether, at once comforting and unnerving, threading their hearts and minds together. You're thinking about what's waiting for us, Elias said, breaking the silence. I can practically hear the royal sighs of, we told you so, echoing across the city. Lyra allowed herself a small smile, though her eyes remained serious. They are, concerned for me. And cautious, of you. Some, may seek drastic measures. She paused, ears flicking, a subtle nervous gesture. But I will not allow them to separate us. Elias's grin was crooked, teasing. I'm glad to hear that. Because after surviving murderous moss, derelict space stations, asteroid fields that could crush a moon, and a near-constant sense of doom, I'm not exactly eager to be someone's cautionary tale. She chuckled softly, the sound carrying through the cabin and vibrating faintly through him, as if reinforcing their shared heartbeat. You are, amusing, human. And infuriatingly persistent. Qualities that have, served us well. The shuttle descended toward the capital city. The atmosphere shimmered with protective energy fields, domes of translucent light that refracted the morning suns, giving the entire metropolis an ethereal glow. On the landing pad, a formation of royal guardians awaited them, their armor glinting, each movement precise and purposeful. Elias swallowed audibly, muttering under his breath. Yep. Definitely the "we told you so" squad. Lyra's hand brushed against his arm, gentle but deliberate, and he felt the subtle pulse of their bond. We face them, together, she said, voice quiet but firm. No hesitation. The shuttle touched down, hissing as magnetic locks engaged. Elias stepped out cautiously, scanning the faces of the guardians. Each of them held a weapon, but their eyes, beneath the polished helmets, reflected something more complex than hostility. Respect, perhaps, or curiosity. And certainly caution. A senior guardian stepped forward, her voice steady and commanding. Princess Lyra. Human Elias. Your bond is unprecedented. It violates protocol, endangers the crown, and defies natural law. Lyra's long ears twitched in subtle agitation. It also saved my life. And strengthened us. Together, we are capable of more than you anticipate. The Guardian's eyes narrowed. Capability does not excuse rebellion. Elias stepped forward, hands raised in mock surrender. Rebellion, you say? Look, I didn't bring this on myself. I merely donated a pint of my blood, survived a near-death asteroid field, and kept her laughing. That's hardly rebellion, right? Lyra's soft laugh, melodic and teasing, echoed in the courtyard. You are uniquely human, she said. And it appears your humor has its uses. The lead guardian's expression softened slightly, though her stance remained firm. The bond between you, it is dangerous. Uncontrolled. But, it is undeniably stable. Perhaps, it deserves consideration. Elias blinked. Consideration? Wait, that's a step up from execute immediately, right? Lyra's eyes glimmered with faint amusement. Perhaps. Though one must remain vigilant. Our connection is remarkable. Yet fragile if challenged recklessly. The tension, which had hovered like a storm, began to ease. The Guardians, after their initial confrontation, allowed Lyra and Elias to explain the circumstances. The transfusion, the shared survival, the evolving symbiosis. Elias recounted their adventures, asteroid dodges, derelict stations, glowing moss, with humor and flair, each anecdote punctuated by Lyra's subtle corrections and quiet laughter. The Guardians listened, expressions shifting from suspicion to reluctant admiration. After hours of discussion, the Council of Elders and Guardians reached a decision. The bond, once seen as a threat, was acknowledged as a new evolutionary possibility, a partnership that transcended species boundaries, born of trust, courage, and shared experience. Lyra's claim as princess remained intact, and Elias's place beside her, once imperiled, was formally recognized as extraordinary, though unofficial. Elias leaned back against a balcony railing, gazing at the city below. So, basically, we didn't get executed. That's a win, right? Also, do we get medals? Or at least a certificate for surviving the galaxy's most ridiculous adventure? Lyra's smile was soft, genuine. Perhaps a certificate is sufficient. And a mutual acknowledgement of survival. That is important. Elias's grin widened. Acknowledgement. I'll take it. You know, I never thought saving a princess with my blood would make me a cosmic celebrity. She laughed softly, ears flicking gently. You are remarkable, human. And that is essential. Not for fame, but for life. Our life. In the days that followed, Elias explored the city with Lyra, observing alien architecture, floating gardens, and streets lined with bioluminescent flora. Their bond allowed them to communicate subtly, without words, a glance, a flick of an ear, a gesture, and they laughed at minor mishaps and cultural misunderstandings. Each day strengthened their connection and their understanding of the galaxy's complex rhythms. One evening, perched atop a crystalline terrace that overlooked the glowing city, Elias turned to Lyra. You know. I've changed. Not just physically, though I think we both felt that. I mean. I see things differently. Danger, trust, companionship, life. And I think. I'd follow you anywhere. Lyra's violet eyes reflected the twin suns now low on the horizon. And I would allow you to. You have grown, human, in ways I did not anticipate. Yet your humanity, your humor, resilience, and unpredictability, is valuable. Elias smirked. So basically, I'm officially irreplaceable. Got it. She chuckled softly, brushing a hand across his arm. Irreplaceable, yes. And necessary. Perhaps for reasons neither of us fully understand yet. But that is acceptable. They stood together in the fading light, watching the city pulse with life. The dangers they had faced, the royal guardians, hostile terrain, derelict stations, cosmic chaos, were behind them. Their bond, forged in crisis and tempered by laughter, had become a lifeline and a shared purpose. Elias exhaled, feeling the subtle pulse of their connection, a rhythm of trust, instinct, and mutual understanding. I guess this is what they call, happily surviving ever after. Lyra's long ears twitched, and she allowed herself a small, warm smile. Perhaps. For now, human. Together, we endure. Together, we thrive. And, together, we are stronger than the galaxy anticipated. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the crystalline city. Elias felt her presence beside him, steady and reassuring, and the pulse of their shared bond thrummed with quiet power. Humor, courage, and trust had carried them through chaos and danger, shaping them into something extraordinary, a pair bound by choice, necessity, and the unpredictable beauty of life itself. As night settled across the world, stars twinkling in the vastness above, Elias and Lyra stood side by side, ready to face whatever the universe held next. Not as hero and charge, not as savior and saved, but as partners in a galaxy that had been cruel, unpredictable, and magnificent. And in surviving it, they had found themselves, and each other. The universe, vast and unknowable, had nothing left to teach them that they could not face together. And for the first time in a lifetime of chaos, Elias smiled, genuinely, feeling the pulse of the bond, the warmth of laughter, and the certainty that they had, at last, found a place in it.